All right. So I am Loretta Sweeney with OSU Extension Franklin County. I do the senior series. So before the pandemic, I would go around to anywhere within Franklin County and talk to seniors about anything to help them live healthy, happy, independent lives. And so this is one program that I found that so many have found useful. So I thought I would share it through Zoom, and it's turned out to be a wonderful way to share. So I am sponsored by the Senior Options Grants Program. They actually fund my position. So thank you to Senior Options. All right. So how prepared are you? That's a good question to ask everybody. I know a lot of people feel that if they were to go into the hospital, everything's set. So if you were hospitalized, could your family go in and handle everything for you? Would they know where to find your bills when they're due? Things like that. So when it comes to being prepared, we want to think about things that we do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly, even things that we only do yearly. Do we pay rent or a mortgage every month? Do we have insurance? How often do we pay that? Utility bills, credit cards, maybe even medical bills. We want to think about other items as well. Things like a pet. Do you have a pet, a dog, a cat, a fish, a turtle? Does it require specific food? Has it had its shots? If it got sick, would they know who your vet is, who to contact? Do you water plants for a neighbor, or do you have plants? If you're like me, I have plants. They just don't last very long. I tend to kill them all. But, you know, do they know about these things? These are items that we know everything about, but maybe our family or our friends don't know if somebody were to come in and help us. So this is where planning ahead is important. So today we're going to talk about getting our affairs in order in case of an emergency or in case of long-term care. So we're going to talk about gathering our paperwork, what items we should focus on and include. So we want to gather everything that we can. So areas of focus are personal information, legal documents, financial records. We'll also talk about how to organize these items, like where to store them, things like that. We'll also talk about how often to update these items and review them. You know, we may not do all of this at once because it can be overwhelming when you sit and you look at everything that we really need to think about. So in this case, we're going to make it a little bit easier. You can do it a little bit at a time, focus on individual areas. Sudden illness can happen at any age. So this is the planning that really every adult needs to think about. Those that have children, whether they're young or older children, even older adults, grandparents, we all should be planning ahead, making our preferences known, taking care of our household and everything seamless. So we want to start with organizing our personal information. So the first thing, we want to make a master list of names and phone numbers of close friends and family, clergy, even doctors or any professionals like lawyers or accountants. So our close contacts that we need. And then we'll think about personal documents. We're talking things like your birth certificate, social security card, marriage license, divorce papers, military discharge papers, things like that. Now that social security card, I did mention that really should be stored with our birth certificate. So not kept in a wallet, because that is something that someone, if they get a hold of it, it's easier for them to steal your identity. So that's one of those items that we want to keep it in a nice secure place. And then make a list of secured places that you might have things that are under lock and key, or if they're password protected, things like a safe deposit box or a safe with combinations, your security alarm, things that we want to keep track of that someone may need to know, especially if you have that security alarm. If they come into your home, if it sets it off, how do they turn that off? Or what do they say if the security company calls? And then we want to have a list of service providers. That is anything from lawn care or yard work, utility companies, to pharmacies, especially if you have mail order pharmacies. So if you use those, it's nice to keep that phone number handy, because you don't need those prescriptions sent to you when you're in the hospital or something like that. So it's nice to have the contact for them to be able to stop that service. Again, another thing that a lot of people may not think about is their pets. So if you have a pet, make sure that you have instructions for how to care for your pet. So if you're in the hospital for a couple of days, that can be really disruptive to a pet. They feel those tensions. They know something's not right. So it's nice to make their care seamless as well, to keep things as normal as possible. And then end of life wishes, such as organ donation, tissue or body donation, including documents that you might have. If you have specific instructions like funeral instructions, or your care instructions, it's nice to have that all written out. If you've made pre-arrangements with a funeral home, include a copy of that agreement, as well as contact information, whether it's prepaid or not, what's included in that if it is prepaid. So then our next area to focus on would be our legal documents. So it's nice to make sure that we have our original copy of our will, or a trust if you have a trust document set up. These documents allow you to name a person that you want your money and property to go to after you die. Things like advanced directives, they allow you to make arrangements for your care if you become sick. Those include things like a living will or a durable power of attorney for healthcare. So you don't have to have, you could have a will and an executor for that will, and you could have a living will or this durable power of attorney for healthcare. And you can have different people taking care of different parts of your estate or of the things that you want taken care of. If you have somebody that you want to handle your money, you may have someone else that you want to handle the healthcare decisions, and that's okay. You can do that. For legal matters, having a power of attorney in place allows you to have someone that you trust to act on your behalf. So you can have a general power of attorney that becomes effective as soon as it's actually signed and witnessed for a power of attorney. Now, it also ends when you're no longer able to make your own decisions. That's just a straight power of attorney. Now, if you want a durable power of attorney, those stay in place until death for a durable power of attorney. They don't have to be just for healthcare, but you can have separate ones, one for healthcare decisions and one for other things that you may have to take care of. And then making a list with financial documents, making a list of pensions, income, Social Security, 401ks, interest investments, etc. So we want to do that with all of our income, and then also with any kind of debt like mortgage, car payments, credit cards, medical bills, things of that sort. So anything that is income or anything that you're paying out as far as debts go. And then a list of your financial accounts, listings of your bank accounts or brokerage accounts, such as checking and savings, stocks, IRAs, 401ks, mutual funds, and their contact information. So having a copy of a statement for each of them is great. And it's best to keep one at least yearly for those, because that has the contact information for them. And it's easier to find that to get a hold of them if needed. You then want to list company benefits, a list of your retirement plans, pensions, or benefits from a current or former employer. When it comes to those, you want contact information for the benefits administrator. Those could change every year. So it is important that we have that current one. So keeping those when you get those every year is wonderful. Insurance policies are under these financial documents. Having a list of all of your policies, that includes life insurance, long-term care, homeowner, auto, might be renter's insurance, your Medicare insurance or Medigap, prescription drug insurance, any kind of insurance policy that you might have. So you want the agent or at least the company name. You want the policy numbers if you have them, and a phone number to contact someone. That list will ensure that if you can't find one of the policy papers, but you know who the company is that it's with and who it was through, they can at least track those down if they're contacted, to make it a little bit easier. You know, you may know, oh, I have a policy with this company. I can't find that paper right offhand, but you can contact them and they could look that up. Another thing that's really helpful is to keep a list of your credit cards. So, or charge cards, including the card number and a contact phone number for each. Don't keep the expiration date. Don't keep that little CVV code that's on the back of that card, just the card number and a phone number. This is good if you lose your card or it's misplaced, or even if it's stolen. It allows you to have the information you need to contact the company and let them know. You know, easier to report lost, stolen, any of those sorts, or to contact them when you do find it again, if it was missing. You then want to list property. So any real estate or motor vehicles or any other property that you own, whether you own it, you rent it, or you lease it. Have the documents like the deeds or the titles, loan or lease agreements with that list as well. You may notice if you've purchased a car in the last 13 years at least, they no longer send you that title when it's paid off. You have to go and request that title. And that's something you may not think about until you go to sell that car or transfer that title. If you don't have the title, which it's not automatic, you need to go request that. And you can do that through the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, through the title area. Other things are keeping copies of tax returns. Those we keep for 7 years. You don't have to go back any more than 7 years from the last one that the most recent one you filed. So if you've already filed 2020, you need to keep all the way back to 2013. Beyond that, you can shred those. And it is recommended that you shred those documents because there's so much personal information that people could use and steal. So we want to make sure that we are shredding any kind of personal information or any of those kind of documents. With the tax returns, keep all of those receipts that go with them, whether it's insurance payments or whatever it might be, as well as contact information for the person that prepared that return, if you didn't do it yourself. So how would we organize all of this information? Some people like to keep it all in a drawer. Sometimes it's too much for one drawer, or some people have a better method that is just easier for them. Putting it in one place is great, but for me, that just doesn't work. I have things in different spots. So you could use a file in a desk drawer, but I did send you a nice document to let you write down where you keep those items. And I'll go through that at the end. But it's a wonderful way to do it. And then you could just put that in a notebook, or maybe you have a 3-ring binder that you can organize a lot of that information to make it a little bit easier, putting tabs in it to separate. However you do it, it's nice to then tell the person that you would want to come in and take care of things where that is. It might be the trusted family member. It may be a friend. You may decide that, you know what, I'll tell you that you can find this stuff here. Or you may say, hey, here's a copy of that paper that I'm going to show you in a little bit for them. Another thing is to remember too, that you can give permission in advance. You can give permission to your doctor's office for them to talk to that person if they're with you, and leave that on file. So you can give those permissions early. You don't have to make sure that it's done at the end. You can do it whenever you want to do that. Again, without consent, they may not be able to do anything. So some other things to help with advanced planning. So health issues are not always predictable. You could get sick any day. Accidents happen. Having a plan in place is going to make your recovery easier, knowing that everything's been taken care of and that there's someone doing things the way that you want. So starting discussions early is a major factor in this. Make sure you're talking to your family, that they know that you've taken care of things in this way, that you've set up some things. This is how you want things done. Maybe you don't want to be on a ventilator. Maybe you don't want a feeding tube, things like that. Let them know. Maybe you want to donate your organs to help somebody. It's important that you make sure that you share that information. Organ donation is one of those things. You can have it on your driver's license, but your family could override that in the hospital. They can say no. So make sure that they know what you want. Review your plans yearly. So review what you've got in place, go through everything. You may find that you need to change something or that you forgot something. So reviewing those files can help you see things that might need changed or updated. Maybe you've closed a credit card, or maybe you've opened a new account that you don't have anything in there. That yearly review. So basically, just when you get that Social Security statement once a year, put that new one in the folder. Or when you get a quarterly statement from your banks or investments, just replace the old one with that new one, so that you at least have a new one in there that's the most current. Again, we're planning for the future because we can't always plan when we're going to be sick or when things are going to happen. So we just want to take care of things to help reduce anxiety. So what other items should be included? We've included like the major things, but there are some other things that we should be including. Things like medications that you're currently taking. Make sure you have that list. We should always have that list to review it with our doctor. You should also be reviewing that list with the pharmacist, especially if you use more than one pharmacy, because they may not know the over-the-counter medications that you're taking. And you could have interactions between those and prescription medications. Your blood type. Do you know your blood type? If not, it's a good idea to ask your doctor, just so you know what it is. Maybe your family doesn't know. Keys. Where do you keep your keys? Spare key for your car, for your home. Where's that key for the safe deposit box? Pet records, like their vaccinations, the vet contact information. If they're AKC registered, their papers. Your vaccination records. Do you have a list of vaccinations that you've had? Maybe it's shingles vaccine. When was your last flu vaccination? Currently, it might be the coronavirus vaccine. It might be tetanus. Do you know when your last tetanus shot was? So having that list is helpful. You may have some household items that aren't in your will, but they're special enough that you want them to go to somebody specific. So having that list of who you want certain things to go to that may not be in your will, if your will hasn't been updated. Your family tree. If you have a copy of your family tree or family information, family doesn't always know they want it when it's being offered. It doesn't mean they won't want it. They just may not know that they want it yet. So having that copy, knowing where it is, that you could share that with them or they could find it. So an important thing is, how long should you keep documents? That's always a good question, because you never know. It seems like there's so many different things. How long should we keep them? So some things that we should keep forever. Birth certificates and death certificates. Keep them forever. Social Security cards. Again, keep them forever. They can be difficult to get new ones. Pension plan documents. You want to keep those. Any kind of ID cards and passports that you might have, keep those forever. Your marriage license, business license if you have a business, insurance policies. Even if you have a digital copy, we want to keep a copy of those insurance policies. Wills, living wills, power of attorneys, trust documents. You want to keep those forever. Vehicle titles and loan documents. Keep those as long as you own that vehicle. And then your house, the deed to your house or mortgage documents, you want to keep those for as long as you own the home. And I go into a little more detail on those in a little bit. Things to keep for a little while. That is, you can scan them or you could keep hard copies. So that's tax records. We keep our tax records for 7 years. 7 years from the most recent one that you filed. Pay stubs and bank statements, we want to keep those for 1 year. Home purchase, sale, or improvement documents, keep for at least 6 years after you sell it. Or if it's something that's on your tax return, keep it as long as you keep that tax return if it's longer than that 6 years. Medical records and bills, keep for at least a year after payments in case of disputes. But if it's on your taxes, you need to keep it for the 7 years, for as long as you keep those tax records. Warranty documents and receipts, keep as long as you own the item. One thing I would recommend would be to make sure you're filing your warranties as soon as you get the item. And then some of them are now letting you scan your receipts in with it, so then it's already there. So if you can scan your receipts, otherwise make sure you keep it, you know where that is, because you may need those receipts. So things to just keep the most recent version. Your Social Security statement, you may get that once a year, keep the most recent one. Annual insurance policy statements. We should be getting those about once a year, so keep the most recent one so you know what that coverage is. Retirement plan statements like 401k or 529, an IRA, 403b. Keep the most recent one of those. So think about how hard is it to replace the document when it comes to whether or not you should keep it. If it is hard to replace, then you want to keep it. Now, if you can get it online, that's wonderful. That means it's a little easier to replace. You could just download it when you need it, but go and look at how far back can you go. bank statements, you can get them online now, but how far back can you go for those statements? So you may want to consider downloading them and keeping that hard copy, but also consider when you're downloading items, what happens if you have it all stored on one computer? What happens if that hard drive crashes? Do you still have access to that information? So that's a big thing to think about. If you can get it online, you probably don't need to keep it, but it really depends. Again, how hard is it? Is that an account that you're going to know how to access again next year? Preparing now makes it so much easier when we need it. It's just a matter of doing it and getting prepared. So I'm going to stop my slideshow. And I'm going to go through some of these items that I sent you. Again, I sent you the Get It Together, and it's how to organize your records. It goes through exactly what I covered. So things like we want our personal information, contacts, personal documents, end of life wishes, legal documents, financial records. Everything is on here. It's so much easier for you to go through and say, okay, I'm going to take care of my insurance today. I'm going to gather all of that. So you could break it down and do little bits to organize yourself and do it in short spurts. Now, this one I have not sent to you, and I'm going to. This is the Advanced Care Planning Tips from the National Institute on Aging. And this document is wonderful. It has a lot of information about, like it talks about the difference between hospice and palliative care. It talks about making your wishes known, living wills, advanced directives, pacemakers, just so many things, how to make things official. And it gives you a little bit more on where to get that information if you want more information. So that one is one that I did not get sent to you, and I will be sending that after the program. You did get the, it's called the Age Page from the National Institute on Aging on getting your affairs in order. And this one talks about planning for the future, what's considered an important paper. And again, it goes through a lot of the things that I already went through, talks about steps on how to get everything in order, talks about the legal documents, and there are many resources on this as well. This one I did not send you, so I am going to send that to you. How long should you keep the documents? So that does cover the things to keep forever, those to keep for a little while, those that you want to keep the most recent version. So you are going to get this as well. We have a caregiver checklist. It's the medical records paper. This is about you, where you put your name, your date of birth, your doctor, specialists, medications you're taking. You can put your insurance, medical history, family history, and emergency contacts. This is something, if you don't already have something like this, fill this out. You can keep it on your refrigerator. If you ever have to call the paramedics, they can grab it off of the refrigerator to take that with you when you go to the hospital if you need to go. Now, this one you'll probably want multiple of, but you can print as many as you need. This is the password organizer. This is wonderful if you have different usernames and passwords for different sites, and most of them you probably do. You may have a few different passwords, but it certainly makes it easier to remember when it's written down. So you can list the website, the email address you use to register on that site, as well as your username and your password, and any kind of notes, maybe things that maybe for you to list the questions, the answers to your questions that you gave them. So I think there's room for 3 or 4 on this page. It looks like 3. So you may need to print more. And then this document, I sent it to you, but not in this PDF fillable. And so I'm going to send you this version. You can fill it in online. So that way you can make things a little easier to fit on those lines. And this is wonderful. This is great. If you have trouble remembering, you put things in a nice secure place, if you're like me, and then I can't remember where that secure place is, or, the easiest place to find, and I can't find it. So this is the quick guide to locating your important documents. Things like your address book, your credit cards, or the statements for those, your income tax records, your different insurance policies, your keys, marriage certificate, your passport, maybe your pet records, that power of attorney, your social security card, your vehicle records, or where do you keep your will or living trust or whatever, your trust or your living will papers. So it's a wonderful little paper. You can print as many as you need. If you want to share it with someone else, this lets you do that. If you change where you're storing something, you can just go back in, replace that with the new place, the new location, and print out a new one. And you can even put the date that you've updated it. I'm going to stop sharing.